everyone, it's me, Miss Sue, and I'm back to do another art workshop with you. I'm the art teacher for the Art Explosion art workshops we have here at the Bethel Park Community and Rec Center. And with the help of Bethel Park and Kathy from the Bethel Park Community and Rec Center and Dave from Bethel Park TV, I'm able to come back into your home to do some more art with you. I brought Miss Betty along with me because she's my mascot and she loves to cheer us on to do art. So she's going to give all her friends a high five, as well as a foot five. All right, a foot five too. And for those of you who don't know me, Miss Betty, my mascot, I love to start with her because she always gets me kind of my imagination going, gets my creativity going, and both of those are really important when I do art. So, like all of you, I'm still at home right now, taking a walk sometimes out in my backyard. I am able to walk up and down my street, which is nice. And because I'm staying at home more, I find myself eating at home more. So the other day, I walked out to my recycle bin to put recycles in my bin because I tend to have a lot more because I'm making more food. And I opened my recycle bin up and I was like, oh my gosh. There is an art project in here. So I went and took my recycle bag back with me. I had this whole bag full of recyclables, brought it back in the house with me, and I thought I'm going to check out these recyclables. So I spread them out, and I found, as I started to look at them, I was looking at some of the shapes, like this cool rectangle, and I had a cylinder, and it reminded me of a very famous artist, Pablo Picasso. And some of you might have heard of Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso was born in Spain, and he was doing art for, over 70 years. And the thing that I find very impressive about Pablo Picasso, and I think a lot of people do, is his diversity. Pablo Picasso was able to do so many different kinds of art. He could draw portraits that looked very real and were done really well. He could do abstract portraits that you could kind of look at and be like, oh my gosh, I see it. And you could get what he was trying to say from that type of art. He would do sculptures. He was one of the first artists to start doing collage art. So he would actually take pieces of newspaper and incorporate them in his art. Pablo Picasso also was a pioneer, one of the pioneers of the art movement, Cubism. And this picture, his very famous picture, The Three Musicians, is a good example of that. Now, Cubism art, that was real interesting because that's where an artist would take an object, maybe something like this container, and they would study it. And then what they'd do is they'd look to show you that object in their artwork from different viewpoints. So they might draw the top, they might draw the side, maybe they'd draw the bottom, maybe they'd incorporate these colors they see on it in their picture. So if we go back to Pablo Picasso's picture, The Three Musicians, I go into the picture the way I read, and so my eye tends to go in this light blue section. And the first thing I see in this picture is this big rectangle here, and it's a hand. And it's actually a hand of one of the musicians, rather large, facing up this way. And then I can see a smaller hand, the other hand, which is much smaller. So this tells me that this musician is probably plinking on his instrument. He's working on it a little bit and probably not playing with this part. As I go further into the picture, I can see the costume Pablo Picasso painted on this musician, and it's a harlequin costume, which was known for the theater back in his time. So this tells me that this is more than musicians playing. It's kind of like maybe it's going to be a theatrical performance as well. Notice the face here, and that's so interesting. That's kind of a good example of Cubism because you've got the eyes kind of looking forward at you, but notice the bottom of the face is facing the opposite direction. And then as I work my way in, I can see actually a face drawn into the middle of this. And that tells me that there's probably an audience there listening, which is really cool. I don't see this person like smiling or laughing. So again, I'm thinking these musicians are probably getting ready to start. I have a musician, the last one here. Notice he has his microphone and it's down low. So again, that kind of tells me, I don't know that they're singing yet. And then I can see he's dressed in this dark cloak which gives like a mystery to this whole picture. I had the opportunity to see this picture in real life at a museum in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and it is big. The picture itself is probably as tall as me, and it's very wide. And so it actually looks like when you stand in front of it, you're actually almost looking at like 3 people. That's how big it is. And I think I spent over a half hour just standing there looking at this picture and all the things that the artist Pablo Picasso was trying to tell me. These are some sculptures Pablo Picasso did, and these are really cool too to me. One of the things with Pablo Picasso and his sculptures, he would collect things. So one studio he actually had there was like a backyard, and potters and other metal workers would throw the things they weren't using kind of on a big pile. And Pablo Picasso would go out and collect scraps, and he would use them in his picture. He would also collect things on his way to his studio. So he would kind of find something and say, hey, this is really cool. I'm going to put that in my sculpture. And in the case of the nanny goat here, Pablo Picasso actually used a basket to make the stomach. And if you look down here, you can see actually there's a jug that was used in this sculpture of a goat. I also have metal pieces here. So what he did was put them all together and he covered them with plaster. This is another sculpture of Pablo Picasso's, and it represents a girl jumping. This is a large sculpture. It too is about 3 to 4 feet tall. Pablo Picasso had someone make for him these 2 pieces, and then he used them to put this sculpture together. Notice the belly, like the body of the girl on the swing. It's made out of a basket. And the top part of it is actually made out of an old chocolate tin that he used. So Pablo Picasso used different things in his sculptures, just like we're going to do today. So here are all my pieces. And before I started my sculpture, I went around the house and I collected some other things I could use. So some of the materials I collected is I collected some duct tape, which I thought would be good. I collected tacky glue, which I'm going to use. I think this is better outside than just regular glue. I also got a paintbrush and a container to put my glue in. And I like to use a paintbrush to spread it, but make sure you use an old brush if you're going to do that, because it'll ruin your brush. I also have some crayons that I'm going to use a little later. I have some permanent markers, which will work well outside. Of course, my scissors. I found some wood laying around the house, just odd scraps, and this is balsa wood, so it's very lightweight. I'm going to use that. I found some popsicle sticks that I have, and I also have some little round wooden balls that I found. So I'm going to use all that. Oh, and this really cool bubble wrap that I liked. I also have that. And I had some pieces of material, and I cut them up to make little squares. I put them inside this container thinking that it would be a good way to keep them. So I cut them up just any old way, real roughly, and I'm going to also maybe use those. So that's some ideas. You can use anything you have laying around the house, but you want to take a look for them. And so then I got, and one more thing. I also have my sketchbook, which you guys can use your sketchbooks. This one of mine I like to not only draw pictures in my sketchbook, but I like to make notes too. This one, the paper, there's no lines on it, but I also have a sketchbook at home I use like a journal that I will draw on. And you can use anything you have at home. You can use a tablet if you happen to have one of those. And then if you don't have a tablet, you don't have a sketchbook, a folder works fine that you can put your pieces in. Just kind of put your paper in as you make sketches. You can slide it in, or a binder as well with some loose leaf in it. If you have one of these, you probably have a lot of school supplies at home. So any one of these would work great for you to sketch. So now what I'm going to do is I've got all my recyclables and I started to take a look at them. And this rectangle, I kind of felt talk to me. So I was like, I want to use this rectangle. So the first thing I did was I got out my sketchbook and I decided to do some sketches. So I sketched the rectangle. I sketched one of the cylinders. As a matter of fact, I was looking at these containers. And so I started putting things together. And I decided that I wanted to make a little person. It was what I was going to do. So I started out, I first tried, I had 2 of these. And I tried these as the legs, but I kind of just didn't like the way they look, so I forgot that idea. And then I went with my containers. And I like this, but I noticed it's not very sturdy. So what I did was I took a second container and I put it on the back. And I felt that worked much better. And so I ended up taking my scissors and cut this piece off. So notice I'm going to cut away from my hand, and I just cut this piece off and use this. And I put the two of them together. And that's what started my sculpture recycle lady. So here you can notice the two containers from strawberries are down on the bottom. I then took another rectangle and I put it on the top. And then I started to work on her arms, what I wanted to use, and I decided popsicle sticks would be a good fit. So I took my strawberry container, which I thought was really neat. It closed, and I was able to slide the popsicle stick right inside the container. And you've probably already noticed that to put everything all together, I used the different duct tapes that I brought. So I put some duct tapes on. For the head, I used my large white container, but it was a little bit too big. So I decided to cut it, and I cut it with my scissors, and I took the lid and I put it on top of the cut piece so that I could use that to form the face. And you can see again the different colored duct tapes that I put around to decorate it. And then I used my markers. I had some permanent markers, and I used those to draw the face. So that is Recycle Lady, which was my first one. I had all these materials left, so I was like, well, I have to make something else. And I kind of look at things like, what talks to me? So I happened to really like these two cans. I was liking that, and I liked the way they went together, and I still was liking my big container. So I got my sketchbook out again, and you'll notice I sketched the pieces. So I sketched my cans, and while I was sketching them, I kind of got some ideas to put them together, and I decided I'm going to try to make a frog. So we're going to do that together, and we'll see how it works out, and maybe it can give you some ideas. So I started out taking my container, and I took some of the scraps of material that I had cut, and I started to put them on it. The way I did that was I used my tacky glue. So here was my tacky glue, and I put it in a cup. And again, I'm going to use an old brush to spread some of that glue around because I think that works the best. So you just take your brush. You can put your glue on, just kind of like I'm doing right there. And then you can take some of the material, and you can see this is cut really pretty roughly, but that's good. And I'm going to just mix up my colors because I don't want all the same next to each other. I also cut up some bubble wrap because I love playing with bubble wrap. And so you can also use some of that. And I just went all the way around my container. You can see I'm putting a little bit more glue on right now. This is going to be the base of my frog. And then I'm going to put some more pieces of material down. And they don't have to line up exactly. I could overlap a little bit if I wanted to put them up on the top. I'll put that one there because it's kind of close looking to the other one. Again, this bubble wrap works really nice, so I can use some of that. And I'm just going to fill in the rest of this space with some material. You can see how I've kind of put it down. We'll put a little more glue under that. There we go. And see, that glue holds pretty well. And I made a note in my journal of the glue I use, so I'll be able to see how it holds up outside and how I like it. So that's going to be the base of my frog. Now I need to put my cans on the frog. And I kind of like the way this looked. I thought that looked pretty cool. So that's the way I'm going to put them on my container. And to attach this can, I'm going to use a hot glue gun. So I have two of them plugged in here. They're tangling up a little bit, but it'll work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the hot glue on the bottom of my can because I'm going to put that side facing down. I think it would be the sturdiest. So notice how I covered it with a lot of hot glue, and I'm putting it right on my can. I have an extra piece of material here. I'm going to also glue that down as well. Now I want to put this piece on. So I'm going to put some hot glue on the inside of my can. which is a little bit harder than it was to put it on the outside, but I think it'll work. And I'm also going to put some hot glue around the top here to help hold it in place. Now, to use hot glue, you probably need to have a grown-up help you, so you want to get some help from mom or dad and get someone to help you with that. And I'm just going to slide that right on. And that's going to form the frog's body. Now, the next thing my frog needed was a tongue. And I thought, how am I going to make that? So I decided again to use some of the duct tape that I brought. So I took a piece of duct tape. I thought this pink would make a nice tongue. So I took a piece of duct tape and pulled it out. I took a pretty long piece because I want it, and I cut it. And notice I'm cutting away from me because I don't want to cut myself. So notice how I've got my scissors away, and there's my piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that and I'm going to fold it in half and put it right like that. And now it's ready for me. So now I can take my scissors once again. I want to be careful how I cut. And I'm going to cut the tongue for my frog out. So I'm going up one side. See how I gave it a little bit of a point there? I think that'll look good. And then I'm going to leave this part thick because I'm going to glue that on the can. And then I'm going to cut the rest out. So that would make a nice tongue for my frog. So next I want to glue that down. So again, I'm going to use hot glue, and I'm going to put the tongue onto the top of my can, which is going to turn into a frog. All right. So the next thing I'm going to use for my frog is this really cool bubble wrap that I have fun with. So I've got a piece here. I cut out a couple pieces. So let's see what I've got. So I'm going to use this piece because it's kind of like a triangle. I like the shape of that. So I'm going to take my bubble wrap and I'm just going to bunch it up. And that's how I'm going to put it on my can. So again, I'm getting my hot glue ready. Whoop, this hot glue is almost empty. All right, and I'm going to put some hot glue on my can. There we go. And then I'm just going to put my bubble wrap right on top of it. I'm going to come down to the front here. I like the way this is kind of hanging over a little bit, and it looks a little bit like the face of a frog. So I'm going to put some hot glue right down here, and I'm just going to hot glue that right on. Now, for the eyes of my frog, I found two really cool round wooden balls. So I put an eye on it like a frog would have. And I'm going to put that eye right here. And then I'm going to take the other one. And I drew the eyes on with my permanent markers. So if you're wondering how I put those eyes on there. Now I'm going to take that eye and I'm going to just mount it right on there like that. And there we go. I think that's looking pretty good. Now he needs some legs because frogs have pretty cool legs. So I cut out, notice I have a lot of hot glue kind of working around here, but that's okay because when it cools it just comes right off. So I cut two rectangles from my bubble wrap and I'm going to kind of make them into a leg. So notice how I sort of rolled it up to make it look like a leg. I'm going to take my hot glue and I'm going to put it on the side of my can here. So I'm kind of loading up some hot glue on there. I think that's going to work well. And I'm going to take my leg to my frog and I'm just going to attach it right like that. Now notice how it looks like it might unfold a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit more hot glue right here. And I'm also going to add some hot glue down to the bottom of the can because I want to put part of the leg down there. So now I'm attaching that. I'm going to bring this around to the side and I'm going to just glue that down right like that. Now I have a lot of extra piece back here and I could cut this, but what I'm going to actually do with it is I'm going to wrap it around, I think you can all see that, to cover the back of my frog. So I'm going to once again take my hot glue and I'm just going to put some hot glue on the back of my can and I'm going to bring that piece around and I'm just going to use it to cover the back of the frog. Got a little piece here. I also have some small pieces of bubble wrap. So these spots like this, I can take a small piece and I can just fill that right in if I'd like to. And just kind of glue that down as well. Let me add my other leg. And I think, whoop, there we go, save our frog. Again, I'm going to take my rectangle. I'm going to just fold it so it looks a little bit more like a leg. And now what I'm going to do is put another strip down the side of hot glue. Take my leg, fold it in there. I'm going to bring this around the back like I did the other leg. Add a little bit more hot glue just to firm everything up. There we go. And now I'm loading some hot glue in the back of the can. And I am going to take the rest of this material and just bring it on back here and fold it in. So there we go. There is our frog in the starts of it. Now, I'm going to touch up a little bit with some extra glue back in here on the back to fold some of these pieces in. And that looks to me like it just leaves me with this part of the frog. And I have this piece right here, which can just cover that right up. So again, load in some more hot glue. And there you go. I'm going to put the bubble sides out so that if I feel like popping them later, I can, because that's my favorite part of working with the bubble wrap, is to push in some of these little bubbles. So there we go. Let's take a look at how he looks. Oh, I think he looks pretty cool. Now, I could have maybe put in a couple legs down in here, and maybe I'll do that later on. But I think right now, the frog looks pretty neat. So that is going to be my recycle frog. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to put my recycle characters outside. So I picked pieces that I know I could make a little sturdy in the wind. So I could put some rocks maybe in the bottom of this and put the lid back on. And that way, this guy won't blow away in the wind. And the same with my recycle lady. I could always put something heavy here and something heavy right here, like maybe a small rock to help hold her in place so she did not blow away in the wind as well. Some other fun art projects you can do with this project is I decided to take one of the recyclable items and to try to draw it in a picture. So I took this cup, and you can see here how, in the case of this picture, I drew this cup really big right up in the front. And the front of the picture, an item when it's drawn up in the front, is called the foreground, up close. And then I decided to try to draw some of them further away. And when you draw something further away, that would be, and I can hear all my students saying, the background, and that would be in the background of the picture. So you can tell these are in the background. And then I decided to put a cup in the middle ground. So it's kind of in the middle. And you can have fun doing that too. You can pick any one of your recycle items, look for the shapes in it, and then go ahead and sketch them out and draw them. You can put some shading in if you want to. So notice I started to shade this cup, like if the light was coming in from over here. And you can do that as well. You can direct your light source. If you've never worked with light before, one of the fun ways to do that is to get a flashlight. And you can take your recycle item you're drawing, and you can just put your flashlight. Well, I don't know if we'll be able to tell too much out here, maybe on this dark piece. But you can put your flashlight on the item and you can see where the light's at. And that way you're able to know where it's going to be brighter, where it's going to be darker. And you can kind of play with that a little bit as you do your picture. Doing your picture in the sun would do that too, because you could put your item kind of in the sun and see where the shadow falls when you're working with it. So that could be a fun way. Another cool project would be to draw your recycled item. So I decided I wanted to do a sketch or draw my recycle lady. So I did that as well. And again, as you're working with an item when you're looking to draw it, you want to look for the shapes. So it was real easy for me to see the circle for the head, and I was able to put that in. The rectangle of the body, and then even the legs are like rectangles, so I was able to fill that in. I tried to capture the duct tape that I put in places so that someone could see maybe the color, because I thought that was a cool thing about it. Then I had to figure out the background of the picture. So what I did was, I thought I want to put this in my garden. So I drew the flowers that I'm hoping will be coming up in my garden when summer comes. And I noticed the lines I used for my grass. You could draw where you're going to put your recycle item as your background. You could draw where you made your recycle item. So maybe you want to do a picture where you put it together and the ideas you had. Maybe you want to do a self-portrait. Pablo Picasso did a lot of those. So you could draw yourself building your recycle item. That would be a really cool picture too. The last thing I thought about that you could do as well with this, if you wanted to do a picture, is do a picture like a cubist artist would do. Kind of like Pablo Picasso did with the musicians. You could decide to draw maybe a front of your picture, and then do the side of your picture, and then do the back. Maybe you want to show the color a different way and make it abstract. Put all the different drawings you did together to form one drawing to give someone an abstract view of the item you made. So all those can be fun projects for you as you work with all your recyclable materials. Now this would be the time that we would normally, those of you who know my art class, we would get together and we would show our artwork. So we would share it with each other. Thanks to the help of Kathy and Bethel Park and the Community Center, we're still able to do that. What you need to do is you want to go to their Facebook page, and there will be a link, and you can click on that link and put a picture of your artwork that you made, kind of upload it. And then the Bethel Park Community Center will put it on their Facebook page in an art gallery. You also, I would love to see your pictures too, and you can also send them to me along with ideas you might have had that worked really well, or if you have a question, like you're trying to do something, you're like, oh, I don't know this will work or that'll work. Just send me off an email, let me know, and I'll be glad to help you if I can. You can go to my website, make sure it's okay again with Mom and Dad, but you can go to my website, which is www.enviroart, ENVIRO art-pittsburgh.com. And there you'll find ways to contact me. So hopefully that gives everybody a lot of great ideas. You guys can get going on some art. I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'm hoping to see all my friends at the upcoming summer camps that we'll hopefully be able to have here at the Bethel Park Community Center. And if you do take a walk in your neighborhood, keep an eye out for any art that might be out there, because someone might have a cool recycle project that they were able to put out. So this way we'll kind of get a little art walk in our neighborhoods. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye. Miss Betty's got a high five for all her friends. A 1'5" too, and a 1'5" as well. So she's going to click that up. So have a great day, everyone, and have fun getting creative with art. Bye.